Hi guys. So following the first episode, lots of people obviously were like, okay, you touched on lots of things, lots of different topics, but actually we want to hear a little bit more about some of those specific topics. So today I thought I would just share with you a little bit about some of my journey to healing, specifically related to my therapy. And also just a little bit about one of I think a big contributing factor of my childhood in terms of making me the woman that I am today, which is obviously an amazing woman, but there are some challenges that happened as a result. Thank you so much for all of your feedback from my first video. I honestly am so humbled and really glad that my story and the pain that I had is able to be used in such a positive way to hopefully inspire others and encourage you guys. So thank you so much. I have taken on some of your feedback, so I've tried to have a little bit more fancy stuff in the shot, so it's not too boring and just the white background. I've specifically placed a plant a little bit closer on the drawers at the back, just so that maybe it looks a little bit more exciting. I don't know, let me know what you think. So my mum actually had 5 of us, 5 girls, beautiful girls. And when I was the eldest, when she left, my youngest sister was 6 months old. And unfortunately, all of us had different dads, bar 2 of my sisters. So they had the same dad, and then all the rest of us had different dads. So 5 children, 4 different men. And I don't say that out of judgment. I think that I say that though because I think it's very indicative of where her head must have been at in terms of having children linked to relationships that weren't sustainable relationships. When my youngest sister was 6 months old, my mum had quite a significant nervous breakdown. So she basically left all of us, but put us in like different places. I went to a friend of my mum's who I'd got on with, who was older. But a couple of weeks after, she went to Glastonbury, left me in the house with her 2 kids. I had the craziest house party where like the whole school came. I was in year 7, so I was about 12. Told a few people that I had a free house, and of course like the whole school came. So that was that. And then I following that moved in with a friend. So I actually have a foster family who fostered me for a couple of years, and then I went to live with my grandparents. And my youngest sister was actually adopted by her dad's girlfriend at the time. My mum had clearly by that point faced a lot. We'd had a lot of physical violence, and the police had been at our house, specifically an occasion where at school a lot of people had asked me what was the matter with my face, and I remember going into the toilets, looking in the mirror, and it was black and blue. My face was black and blue. I was unrecognisable. And when the teachers would ask me what happened, I made up a story that I'd got, that a boy had come up to me and tried to steal my bike and push me off the bike and whatever. And at that time, I wasn't really intentionally trying to protect anyone. I just knew inside of me that what had happened at home was wrong, and that I didn't want to tell anyone that. Anyway, the guy that had done this, my sister's biological dad, was actually arrested that night. And I remember sitting around the table and my mum and the police asking my mum, did she not hear me crying? And my mum said, well, yeah, I did hear her crying, but I thought she was just getting some slaps. And it's very strange that specifically really stands out for me. So that's one of the stories of how I suffered, but also so did all of my sisters, obviously, and they all have their own stories and their journeys to healing. And unfortunately, some of them aren't on that journey yet. And obviously, for them, the pain has been so overwhelming that a couple of them are very severely mentally unwell. One of them was sectioned. And unfortunately, a couple of them have had children where the cycles are repeating themselves. And so for me, that's been the most painful thing to watch. my mum at the time when she left, it was very much it was kind of like she was going to come back. Like, I don't remember there being a specific occasion where she was like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm never going to come back. Like, we're never going to be together again. And in fact, two of my sisters remember being literally left on the pavement with bin liners with their things in for their dad to collect them. And I just think that is so heartbreaking, right? And for her more than anything, because she now is navigating life knowing that she has 5 girls and she now has grandchildren that she doesn't know about, and she's still in the world somewhere. Like, she is still in the world, and there's obviously so many questions that I have that I would love to ask her, but I haven't been able to find her. So that's a journey for another day. Actually, though, more recently, my biological dad has contacted me via Facebook. And just over the last couple of months, I've started building a relationship with him. So I'm going to share about that at some point in the future. But for today, I really wanted to share some of the ways that abandonment and that rejection has impacted me in my relationships, and specifically then my journey to breaking that cycle, or trying to break those cycles, particularly in the last couple of years in therapy. And really, the main thing that I wanted to share was around the kind of woman that I have presented myself as in relationships. And I know that I've spoken to a lot of females who will say that they can relate to this so much. It's like, we're completely amazing women and with great friends and great careers, and then we go into these relationships and become crazy. Like, crazy. We don't recognize ourselves emotionally because we just start behaving in a way that we don't recognize. And I very much saw that in my behaviors. So I'd get into these relationships, none of which lasted any more than, I think my longest was 9 months. But very quickly I would move in with them. I would, as I said in previous video, I would try and fix them. I would invest as much as I could into trying to get them to love me. And that really was my primary aim, was to try and get them to love me. And when I got to the age of 32, I'd kind of always known that I needed to go on a journey of therapy. It was always in the back of my head that I had this box of stuff from my childhood that I needed to deal with at some point. And so I knew that. And I think it was in finding my faith and starting to really want to move forward and become a better person, for want of a better phrase. I think it was all in that I realized that I would have to start digging up some of this stuff. And so I started on a journey of therapy. And I was telling a friend the other day that I will never forget the day that the therapist brings out a box of toys, right? And she's like, so I thought we would do some inner healing, inner child type stuff today. And I remember looking at her being like, and looking at this box of toys and being like, I'm a bit too cool for that, babes. But she was like, Dominique, just please go along with it. Like, I really believe that there could be some breakthrough in doing this. And it was all a bit weird for me. And, I'm not massively arty. I like to think of myself as creative. I like nice patterns. I like colourful things. But I'm not massively arty. And she wanted me to choose toys in this box that represented a specific incident where I'd got particularly beaten up by my stepdad at the time, and then draw a representation of kind of what had happened based on the toys that I was choosing. And I remember being, doing the exercise. I remember doing it and picking like a big ugly spider that was my stepdad at the time, and then this little cute girl that was me, and kind of lying her in this like Lego shaped bed, and and describing in quite some depth the incident of abuse. And it really, like, it just felt weird, right? It just felt weird. And then more recently, and so I've done quite a lot of that kind of stuff now in therapy. And there's a term that's called inner child work. And so a lot of it is linked to going back to the first time that you remember feeling a certain emotion, and really trying to identify where did that come from, which sounds really cliche. Like, I know in the past people would say, oh, do you remember the first time you felt like that? But often, even if I did remember something, it wasn't linked to a specific traumatic memory. It might have been when I was a bit older or whatever. So in these instances, it's very much about going and delving into that specific emotion, and then looking at that from the standpoint of an adult. So for example, if I now have a conversation with somebody who I believe is maybe quite, maybe they've got violence about them, or they've shown to be violent, or they're a bit aggressive. I would say if they're aggressive, I work with young people, some of whom have been ridiculously violent, but would never present that, in the work that I do. So, but I think it's often where I get a sense of feeling small or belittled, really, that takes me back to feeling like a child that wasn't able to protect herself and also didn't have anyone around to protect her. And so as a result, then I've been able to look at that feeling and pull up that past memory and start to really try and understand why I felt like that. But more so how as an adult I can speak to that little girl, my little Dominique, and speak to her from a voice of reason and from a voice of being an adult woman that knows she is now safe and can protect this little girl. And I think the reason I wanted to share this is I was talking to somebody the other day around personal development, and they're somebody that I really admire in this field. And they were talking about a book that they had read, which was How to Change the Past, and really written on the premise that you can change the past. And when they were talking to me about this, I was like, this really sounds like how the principle that is used there is the same as when we rewire emotional pathways in our brain, when we go back to an incident that happened when we were children and we process it from the perspective of an adult and we're able to speak into it. And I remember reading this interview with Mary J. Blige, and she said, somebody had asked her, I think she'd gone through a divorce recently, and somebody had asked her, have you thought about having children, or do you want children? And she gave this really profound answer, which really resonated with me around the inner child stuff. And she said, I'm just learning to be a mother to myself before I can be a mother to other children. And I just thought that was so incredible and such a great testament of actually how much we can transform our emotions and the way that we react and respond to things when we do this inner healing work. And I wanted to talk about it because you often hear the phrase inner child, or particularly around psychology and psychotherapy, and it just does sound a bit like psychobabble. Like, it doesn't sound like you could connect or relate to it. And actually, all it is often is going back to that first time that we felt something that was often from a place of fear or pain, and recognizing that as an adult, we're now able to speak to that little child inside of ourselves. Because otherwise, if we don't, what we do is every time we react emotionally, every time we're triggered and we feel that emotion, but we can't identify it, we just react from a place of being that age and feeling those feelings. And we don't understand then our own reactions, because we haven't explored them. But the point about the working on the inner child is that you can go back and explore them and then really change who you are now because you do that work. So guys, I do hope that something in this was useful. And because I am so passionate about therapy, and I'm so passionate about the journey of healing and about everybody being able to go on that journey, but particularly how important it is for those of us that have experienced childhood abuse in quite a significant way, I am bringing on to the channel next week a therapist who I believe is an incredible, engaging, she's a friend of a friend, and we've had some great conversations about how to break the stigma of therapy and counselling, particularly in the Black community, and that's where she is very passionate about working. That's her specific area, but broader than that, actually, in all of the communities where therapy has not been for us, or therapy has looked like an old middle-aged white man with a pipe sticking out of his mouth, or it's just been this really stereotyped depiction of what therapy is, and it's actually not that. And I really just believe it's such an exciting journey, and really would encourage anyone to start that journey if they haven't already. And if you have, guys, please do comment below and share that with other people, because people that watch these videos are really interested in their own healing. And so anything that you've done, or maybe books that you've read, or podcasts that have inspired you along the way, please do comment and share that below. Guys, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I am so excited about bringing you great content around your healing journey and how to go on that journey of exploring yourself and becoming so much better in your relationships, whether that's work related, romantic, friendships, etc. And if you haven't already, you can follow me on Instagram at lovedomini. Guys, if you've got any questions or you want to get in touch, please do not hesitate to message me. You can also contact me on Instagram or leave a comment below. Lots of love, guys, and see you next week.